Hi everyone, this week's lesson on crime and punishment we're going to be looking at the Norman justice system. So, last week I set you some independent research to do where you had to look at 4 different changes that the Normans and William had introduced and find out a few facts about them. On the screen you can see the answers, so please have a look at your work and check that you are correct. First of all, we have the murderum fine, which was introduced by William so that any Anglo-Saxon that murdered a Norman, the entire village or local area would have to pay a huge fine to William. Secondly, we've got the feudal system, which you already knew about because of your Anglo-Saxons and Norman studies, and it's a way of organising society based on who holds what land and what service and labour other people can do in return for that land. Thirdly, we've got the forest laws, and these were introduced by William because he owned most of England. He said that there was no poaching, that's no hunting on his land, and no cutting down trees on his land. So this was illegal. If you broke the rules, then as you can see, you would be punished by maiming, which is having bits chopped off, or death. The final one is benefit of clergy, and this is where William introduced church courts, which meant that if you were in the clergy in the church, you could have a more lenient punishment, so it wouldn't be so harsh for you. And as a result of this, as you can see, other people pretended that they were clergy, that they were priests, by learning something called the neck verse, which was a verse from the Bible, and that allowed them to pretend that they were actually members of the church and get a more lenient result of their trial. So this week we need to mark our exam style question that you had a go at practicing last week. The question was, explain one way in which Saxon punishments of major crimes were similar to Norman punishments of major crimes. Now on here you can see a waggle, what a good one looks like. Now this one is just an idea, it's not the only answer, but I'd like you to use this to help you to mark your own work. You can see I've written 3 sentences. The first one just names one similarity. It says, one way that Anglo-Saxon punishments of major crimes were similar to Norman punishments was the use of capital punishment or the death penalty. Now I've given 2 specific examples. For example, the Anglo-Saxons would execute criminals for treason by hanging or burning, and the Normans would also use execution by hanging as a punishment for crimes such as poaching in William's forests. So those 2 specific examples have given me the 4 marks. So please have a go at marking your own. Now for this week, we're going to continue our work on the key concepts in the course. So we're going to be looking at change and continuity, the 2 at the top of your screen now. What did William change and what stayed the same? In particular, we're going to look at his justice system. Now you're going to do 2 tasks. The first one you can see here is completing the graph. What I'd like you to do is to have a look at a long list of changes that William made, and for each one I'd like you to plot it on the graph. And on the graph you need to show whether the change was very important or not very important, and also whether it's an example of change or continuity. And I thought we'd just do one together to give you an idea. At the bottom of the screen you can see number 2. And it says the Normans retained, that means to keep, the religious ritual of trial by ordeal. So if they've kept it, that means that it's a continuity, not a change. So we know straight away on the graph that we need to be on this side of the line. And then you need to decide, was it very important that they kept that same trial, that same approach? Or do you think that's not really very important at all? And you would plot the number 2 wherever you felt that you needed to. Now, when you've done that task, I'd like you to have a go at answering the question you can see here. And the question is, how far did William change the justice system? So the key words in that question are how far. And what I'd like you to do is to show how much he changed and how much just stayed the same. And if you like, I've suggested that you use the percent that we'd use in the 16-mark question. If you want to be really clever, the last few bullet points there give you some ideas. You might want to write about which areas changed and which areas stayed the same. And finally, were they important or not, the changes that he did make or the things that he decided to keep the same. So I hope that all makes sense. Thank you very much, and I'll see you all next week.